Here we come, blue and white, and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight, and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job, and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Brunton Bugle, the number one place to get your Carlisle United fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Dan McLennan.
United grabbed their second win of the season as 4,000 Blues fans are treated to the greatest result in our history at Bolton. We look back on the 3-1 win over the Trotters before looking ahead to this weekend's home clash with fellow promoted side Leyton Orient. Did you enjoy our cup final last weekend, Dan?
It was alright, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a standard day out with Carlisle United, really.
Day out, really, wasn't it? You know.
That's a little call forward to what we'll be discussing in the Bolton review section. Our friends over at Trotter Chatter, we're not particularly impressed with their performance or us by the looks of things. Us as in Carlisle United last weekend's game, but what a good day out that was, Dan?
It was alright, wasn't it? It had you knew something good was going to happen on the Friday night with all knacking about with the trains when it was suddenly announced that there'd be no trains north of Preston, which was complete rubbish. And from that moment, I just thought, this could be a classic, this one.
Yeah, there was always a feeling about it. There was a bit of excitement about it. It's the fact that the hype built up around this just sort of organically, didn't it? It wasn't like one of those ones where you're like Wigan feels like one where we're all sort of talking, it's going to be the big one. We haven't played them in years. For some reason with Bolton, you just didn't, and then just suddenly, bang, we're selling loads of tickets. And then, like you said, we'll talk in a minute about the actual day out itself. But wow, what a day that was. But there you go. Right, well, let's get into it. First of all, obviously, we've got to talk about our sponsors, the Carlisle United Supporters Club, London Brunton. Yes, this is the third season that Carlisle United Sports Club London branch ever sponsored the podcast. Really appreciate that support. It's really helpful in terms of hosting costs. If you're a Carlisle United fan based anywhere in the world, you can join the London branch. You don't have to be based in London or South East, wherever you want. Dan, where could you be if you wanted to join the London branch?
Kathmandu.
Kathmandu? Why have you picked Kathmandu?
Because the Asian qualifiers for the 2026 World Cup began today, and somebody I know is in Kathmandu and watched Nepal versus Laos.
That's outstanding, that.
It's genuinely brilliant.
You did send me the list of those fixtures before, and I did enjoy seeing Afghanistan against Mongolia. That's just such a World Cup qualifier fixture, isn't it? It's just incredible. But yes, if you're based in Kathmandu, you can join. You can join, as we've said before, if you're based in Jacksonville, Florida. You can join if you live in Liverpool, like me. You could join if you live in anywhere, basically. Silloth, if you don't live there, you can join it. So there you go. They do lots of great stuff for the club in terms of fundraising and organising stuff for away trips, including travel and tickets. If you want to find out more about them, go to their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org, or grab one of the guys who are selling Hit the Bar at the away games this season. Right then, Dan, before we get onto the news, Mike has done us the question of the week. He can't be with us today, so here's Mike's question for this week's pod.
Now, if you remember from last week's question, Leyton Orient manager Richie Wellens was in League One Team of the Year in 2007-2008. Now, in that Doncaster Rovers team that he played for, he had 5 teammates that would later go on to play for Carlisle. Who are they?
Oh, that's a belter. That's a belter, but I just feel like there should have been a ding at the end of that because Mike once again.
I was going to say, is he in a microwave or a chiller unit? Could be a chiller unit with his work, couldn't it?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? It's a good question, that one. We'll maybe have a think about it right now, and well, not right now, but we'll think about it while we're doing the first half, and then we'll come back to it just after the half-time break and come up with some answers. I've got an idea on one.
I've got an idea on most of these, yeah.
I've got an idea on one of them. I'm trying to think of the others, but yeah, one. In fact, no, 2 of them. 2 of them I've got in my head now, I think, already. So
yeah, I've got 3, possibly 4 already.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll see what we get when we come to the second half of the show. Let's get into the news then, Dan. A couple of little bits to cover this week. Bit of news that broke last week after we recorded, wasn't it? And it's news about Kitman Cole. He's going to be retiring at the end of the season, isn't he?
Yeah.
long-serving stalwart, 13 years in the job he's been, and this seems to have come about because I think Simo basically is just doing a lot of long-term planning, isn't he, in terms of the club and what he wants to do, and I think he's basically said to Cole, look, you know, it wasn't a case of we want you out, it's more a case of like, what's your plans for the future so we can start, you know, planning long-term stuff, and Cole's gone and had to think about it and say, you know what, actually, I'm going to retire at the end of the season, obviously, for those who don't know, Kitman Colley's Colin Nixon, the club's Kitman, brother of John Nixon, one of the club's owners. He's been doing the job since around about 2010. He was there when I started working there as well in the media team. Genuinely lovely, lovely bloke. Really friendly fella around the club. Does a cracking job in terms of sorting out all the kit and stuff like that. So they've advertised his job. The closing date is the 27th of October. You can find out more about it on the official website. And I think the idea is that someone's going to come in and learn the ropes with, aren't they?
Yeah, I saw it was, I think they were saying start January next year, which sort of indicates there'll be a 5 or 6 month passing period where you learn the tricks of the trade, putting names and numbers on shirts and all that sort of stuff. Yeah,
it's also, it's not quite as simple as that though these days, is it? It's also, there's all kinds of regulations in terms of what you're allowed and stuff and everything, and the kit man has to know all that sort of stuff. So, if you're a Blues fan and you fancy getting involved, just drop them a message. You never know, you might get a chance. There you go. Only other bit of news, Dan, was something we sort of discussed on last week's pod. Dave Timmins' red card. The club did confirm, I think a couple of days after we recorded, that they would not be contesting the charge that the FA put forward for him. It was kind of inevitable, wasn't it, really? It's their word against the three officials, and they were never going to win that argument, were they?
No.
Just inevitable. So he's
good news is he used one game up in the pointless trophy for the week.
Exactly, yeah. So he's been given a 2-game ban and a touchline ban and a £750 fine. Obviously, as you mentioned there, one of those has been used up already. Thomas Holy stepped up to be coach for that game, didn't he?
It's worth noting as well. He is allowed to watch from like the TV gantry with a radio.
Yes. He's just not allowed pitch side for. Is it before the game?
I believe midweek he was up with Jakey Blaine, who's obviously the analyst, and had a radio, etc. So
I think I read somewhere said that you're not allowed on the pitch pre-game, during the game, or pitch side, pre-game, during the game, and also for 2 hours after the game as well.
2 hours seems a long time, doesn't it?
I think that's how long the ref can be there for, though. I think there's some sort of regulation about it.
I think 6 p.m. would be fair enough, because most people are showered, changed, and eaten by then. But
you'd think so. Yeah. But there you go. So he stepped up, Thomas, for the EFL Trophy game. But this weekend, the son of a familiar face will be stepping up to carry out the role, won't he?
Yes.
Roman Caig, son of Tony Caig, but we mentioned this last week, didn't we? He's the club's academy goalkeeping coach, and he's going to take the drills and all that kind of thing before the game. So there you go. Very exciting stuff for him. Right, that's it down there. I think there's no other news to cover, is there?
Not that I can think of.
The only other thing I think of is a nice little shout out for the fact that Kiosk have now hit 1,100 members. We talked about 1,000 the other week, didn't we? Fantastic achievement, really. Keeps growing.
Still getting people every couple of days. There's 1 or 2 more join. We get like a daily email for any activity on membership stuff, and a long way to continue.
Yeah, fantastic stuff.
AGM news coming soon. It's going to be at the start of December. We've got a board meeting next week where we'll put the finishing touches to that. So keep an eye out for that if you fancy getting involved.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think we've put it off long enough, Dan. Let's get on to it. Bolton Wanderers 1, Carlisle United 3. Forget Wembley 95, Roma 72, beating Chelsea on the opening day of 74-75 season, the Jimmy Glass goal, Wembley this year. Forget all of them. The greatest result in the history of this football club. If you believe the Bolton Wanderers podcast, there you go. In all seriousness, Dan, I mean, it couldn't really have gone much better in terms of a day out, could it? Maybe other than keeping a clean sheet.
Yeah, but I think going a goal down actually made it even better. Even when Joe Gardner missed his penalty, I still thought we can get somewhere here.
Yeah, I think if any player was going to miss his penalty, I'm kind of glad it was him in a weird way, because he's the kind of player who just doesn't let it bother him. He's not going to take the next penalty, but he didn't let his header drop at all. We'll talk about his performance later on. But yeah, it was just all round a fantastic day out. We'll talk about the game first, and then we'll talk about the day out. Because as fans, we can enjoy the day out. For the players, you'd have to take it seriously. It's your match day, and you've got to be professional about it. But for us, we're fans, of course, we want to enjoy days out like this. This is the kind of ground we've been wanting to go to for the last 10 years, isn't it, really, when we've been stuck in League Two. So, yeah. So before the game, no massive surprise about the team news, was there, Dan, really? Unchanged for the second game in a row?
No, the confirmation that Paul Huntington was injured.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a shame, wasn't it, really, to get that news. It's, I know some people think he hasn't been that, he's been a little bit off it this season, but I still think his experience is vital for us at this level this season, but he'll still be around the club. He'll still be doing his bits for the next few weeks while he works his way back to fitness and what you're not. So Simo stuck with the 4-3-3. Were you a little bit surprised by this?
Yes and no. I can see why, because he doesn't like changing winning teams very much. He sort of says no, they've deserved it, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But once we knew Huntington wasn't playing, you can see why he stayed at 4. Ben Barkley not quite ready for that sort of game.
Yeah,
it made sense.
Corey Reid as much. That's the other thing as well, I suppose, in that sense. But yeah, so that was the lineups. Let's talk about the goals, major incidents, and sort of chances. Early on, quite balanced, I thought. I mean, they were dominating possession, and we expected that, don't we? You look at the stats for them this season. They're on top possession-wise in pretty much every game they play. I mean, looking at possession stats, 69% to them, 31% to us. Twice as much of the ball. But it's what you do with the ball, isn't it? It's the most important at the end of the day.
Definitely.
You can pass it along our back four all you want all afternoon, which Bolton did a lot. But if you're not going to penetrate, then what's the point? They did get an early chance with a good bit of play down the left from Randall Williams. He put a ball in the box, and I thought Lavelle was very brave to throw his head in down towards Charles's foot to head it out for a corner. And then United had a really good chance with Owen Moxon on his left foot. My first thought when he was cutting in from the right with this was, what are you doing having a shot here on your left? But it was a hell of an effort, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
I mean, if that hits the back of the net, I know we went balmy for all the goals anyway, but the roof would have gone off the way end, wouldn't it? I think it's fair to say. And then the Bolton goal, it's weird because we've been talking a lot recently about the fact that the goals we're conceding are very sloppy, aren't they? Not doing jobs properly, that kind of thing. I think this is just good incisive football to split us open, wasn't it?
Yeah. They sort of broke, and next thing it's in the back. It was really, I thought I was in the corner that the ball came from, and I thought it happened really quickly.
Yeah, it was very quick. Well, it was kind of like Forrester stepped out of defence, didn't he, into our half. He played quite high with the pitch anyway because of the amount of possession they had. And he just spotted an opportunity for Dacres Cogley to get in behind Armour, get to the byline, and he put a low ball in, and Mellish didn't have much choice, did he? He had to slide in, otherwise Charles had a tap in at the far post. Unfortunately, he just didn't quite get enough on it and put the ball into the roof of the net. And there wasn't a feeling of heads dropping in the away end, though, was there, when that goal went in?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I thought the young lads, especially in that corner down by was it the crazy corner they call it at Bolton?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, but they kept the noise up and they kept the chant. In fact, they got a chant going pretty much straight away when the ball hit the back of the net. So fair play to them. And United picked up again, and then the penalties. So let's talk about the first one. What was your initial thoughts when you saw it? The award of it, I should say, there, rather than the actual penalty itself, which we'll talk about in a sec.
Well, first of all, I was like, "What's this? A penalty? What's one of these?"
Well, G5 gone to Simo, isn't it? Yeah. Just two of them at once.
They're like buses. You wait ages, and then a couple come along at once. Yeah. No, I thought it was a penalty. I didn't see much complaining from their players.
Yeah. So essentially, Maguire gets the ball on the right, lovely little dribble inside, gets into the area, and he looks to lay it off to Guy on the edge of the box. And my first thought was, I wonder if Dempsey actually got to that ball first, and he's just sort of clipped him after he's got to the ball. But actually, there was a great one of the many vlogs that Bolton fans had put up from behind the goal. Well, so not behind the goal, the corner opposite it, if you know what I mean, at the other end of the pitch. You could see actually that Maguire does get to the ball first and play it back to Guy before he gets flattened by Dempsey. So not much argument there for me. Penalty. Joe Garner stepping up to take it. What was your thoughts when you saw that?
I didn't have any complaints. He was the main striker playing sort of thing. So, yeah, he backs himself.
Yeah, I don't mind him backing himself, to be fair.
No.
Simo didn't complain too much about it, even though it turns out it should have been Jordan Gibson taking the penalty, shouldn't it? From what he was saying after that. So essentially, Garner grabbed the ball, stepped up to take it, and it's just not a good penalty, is it, really? Lummy, I think, said on the radio, didn't he? I think he thought Joe would normally smash it down to the keeper's right in that situation, and he just changed his mind at the last minute. And
it was sort of like a placed with a little bit of pace on, wasn't it? But
it was, I mean,
not enough.
It was nowhere near the corner. I think that was the big problem, wasn't it? And
No,
the keeper
no.
actually saved it with his leg or his knee in the end, I think.
Yeah,
He went out for a throw-in. And like you said, to his credit, Garner's head didn't drop. He carried on putting his performance in. And yeah, from there, there was they had one other chance. I think Dacres Cogley got into the box and hit a shot over the bar. But then came the second penalty. What is their player doing on this?
Only he knows.
It's a bizarre one. So it's a corner comes in, and initially it's sort of it's cleared out, and Guy tries to head it back in, but heads it out further. And McCalman just hooks it back over his shoulder, back into the box, doesn't he? High up in the air. And actually, the keeper's probably got time to come out and claim it, because Mellish is nearby, but he's not near enough by that he would have got to it. And as it is, Owen Toyle, for some reason, tries to head it, but with his hands out in front of him, completely misjudges the flight of the ball and pretty much catches the ball. He sort of retracts his hands just as it's touched them. But like the reaction of all of our players, I think, convinced the ref straight away. He's like, yeah, he has handled that, hasn't he? It's blatant. It's not even close. And to be fair, there's no argument from their players, is there?
No, none at all. I mean, it's, both penalties, there wasn't much of an argument for an opposition player. It's...
I mean, Ian Evatt tried his hardest after the game, didn't he? He tried to say they were disgraced and neither of them were penalties, but I think when he looks back, he'll be a bit embarrassed by it. Well, no, he probably won't be embarrassed by that, knowing him.
Well,
but
no.
There's plenty of other things he's done that are more embarrassing than that, to be fair. So yeah, Jordan Gibson this time grabbed the ball, stepped up, and great penalty, wasn't it?
Yeah,
power,
good.
Past the keeper before he had a really chance to. He dived the right way, but he was never getting to it, was he? Just into the corner. Bang, 1-1, and tails were up at that point. It's just before the half-time break. Perfect time to score, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, really good time. I actually thought we could have kicked on and got a second. I know there wasn't that much time left, but another couple of minutes, I'd like to have seen what would have happened. But no, more than happy to go in at 1-0.
What were you thinking at half time? Because I have to admit, I was speaking with Johnny, who would go to the games with Mike, and I was saying to them, I'm a little bit worried here because I feel like they're not going to come out and be as lacklustre and poor as they were in the first half, Bolton, because they weren't as good as I expected, to be fair. I thought they would be stronger. And that's partly because we did a really good job on them. But I thought, they're going to come out a bit stronger this second half. This might be a bit of an onslaught. Never really came, though, did it?
I was the opposite. I thought, right, we're back in it. It's all square. This is winnable. And you're not about an onslaught. I thought the first 5 minutes or so, they had a little bit of a go. But we just seemed to turn them over regularly and with ease.
Yeah, I agree. I think I was surprised at how much on top we were. Like after the first 5 minutes, that second half, I was like, "Oh wow, we are genuinely the better side here."
Yeah,
we're not having as much of the ball, but we are. Yeah, we're playing the much more effective football out of the two teams, and we weren't playing long ball either. We were getting the ball down and playing a bit of football as well. And that led to a glorious chance for Sean Maguire, wasn't it? Great little bit of play in our own half to win the ball back. McCalman gets the ball and plays a ball through to Maguire, who I think was just inside his own half, possibly, or just inside their half, but onside. Clean through on goal. If you watch it back, there's a point where the ball just gets away from him slightly, and he has to kind of readjust. And I think that takes him out of his stride, gives the keeper a chance to come out a bit further, and as a result, he's able to block the shot from just outside the box. He's got to score that, though, hasn't he?
You would think so.
What were you thinking
when he missed it, we were... come on, But
I was literally...
Little did we know.
I know, but I was right behind the goal, about 2 or 3 rows from the back. And as he came through, as I saw him coming up for the shot, I thought, keeper's going to... I did genuinely think the keeper's going to save this because he's going to try and play it around him. And the keeper set himself to do that dive already. It was good goalkeeping, to be fair. Really clever goalkeeping in that he set himself knowing that Maguire would probably do that.
That's one thing we said where I was sitting, keeper's done well there, really well.
Yeah. The only option Maguire really had, because he couldn't get that ball under control quick enough, was to try and dink it over him. But as, James Phillips was saying, you do that and the keeper saves it, you look like a bit of a tit, don't you? Essentially. He didn't say those exact words and really coming, but he said, you look a bit of a prat, if you do that and he doesn't pull it off. So there you go. And then Bolton had what I think was probably their only chance of the second half, only clear-cut one, other than maybe one that Bodvarsson, the Icelandic sub came on. I think he had a shot that went for a throw-in at one point. But this was one for Dion Charles. It was a good ball in from the right by Dempsey, and Holy kind of spills it because I think if you watch it back, he's about to bundle into Lavelle, wasn't he? And I think he sort of panicked to I'm going to end up spilling this anyway. And he drops it. It falls to Charles, but he just cannot sort his feet out. And he puts the ball into the side netting with the goal gaping, actually. I didn't realise till I saw the highlights back. This was a really good chance for them, actually, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. They'll probably kick themselves because it was by far the best chance of the second half for me.
Yeah, I mean, if that goes in 2-1 and suddenly becomes a bit more of a battle for us to get back into the game, doesn't it?
Definitely.
As it was, it didn't. Up the other end of the pitch, Gibson, good little bit of play down the left. Nice lofted ball over to Garner, who lays it off lovely for Maguire. And it was a difficult one because it didn't quite sit up right for him, did it? And he scuffs his shot, but he scuffs it well, and it's going into the corner. And what a save from Baxter to claw it out. Yeah,
it was a great save, that really was.
Really outstanding bit of goalkeeping. But then a few minutes later, United take the lead. I think it's Jordan Gibson's philosophy right now is, if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to win, are you? In terms of his shooting, because corner's overhit by Moxon, comes into him on the left, cuts inside, and he just thinks, why not? I'm going to have a dig here. And it takes a deflection quite early, so it loops up high. And the second it loops up off that deflection, I was thinking, oh, hang on a sec here. Hang on a sec. And it just goes underneath the bar and over the despairing dive of Baxter and into the back of the net. And at that point, it was pandemonium, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. It was just that split second after. You could see it took the little deflection. It was just a little split second where you're like, is this going in? Yeah. Oh! And cue pandemonium.
Yeah, it was just absolutely crazy at that point, and you could sit here and see the frustrations of the Bolton fans in the home end, and there was a feeling at that point, all right, okay, we might have to batten down the hatches a little bit here, because you'd imagine they're going to throw everything at it. But Everett is so stubborn with his tactics. There wasn't even a thought of he brought on Bodvarsson, he's a big lad. There's no thought of, well, maybe we go direct to him and try and pick up the pieces off it. No, they just kept trying to play what they did, and we were like, okay, we'll do that. Mellish and Lavelle picking up the pieces in the middle, they were fine with that. And as it was, did Holy have a save to make in that last 20 minutes?
Not really. Nothing major anyway.
No, I genuinely can't recall it. Quite a bit of added on time at the end. 7 minutes. I thought it was going to be about 10, to be honest. I was quite surprised it was that low, because they were accusing us of time wasting quite a bit. I don't think we were really that much, but I was a little bit surprised it was that low. 4 minutes into that, they get a corner, and the keeper comes up. I mean, What are you thinking at this point? I'm thinking, hang on, there's still 3 minutes left here.
Yeah, well, I can see why you did it because you're 2-1 down at home, and
Yeah.
I'm always of the belief that I'd rather go down 3-1 having a go
Yeah.
than 2-1 meekly, but charging up with still a full 3 minutes, and someone near me sort of said, "Hey, you could get caught out here if we can get the first contact."
That's what I said that as well. I said, look, get Gibson on the edge of the box because he's so good dribbling and he's so good with his technique. You've got to get him near the edge of the box. And if you actually watch it, but from the view I had behind the goal, I don't think he asks the bench if he can go up. I think he just thinks, "Sod it, I'm going to do this," because he never once looks over the bench. He just bang, his head was down straight up there, and the corner comes in, and he actually gets close to being on the end of it. Only problem is, I think Lavelle's about a couple of inches taller than him. He gets over it, wins another brilliant header, straight to Gibson, and he was just away at that point, wasn't he? He had Alfie McCalmont on his left, Terry Ablade on the right, and didn't need either of them, did he? If you watch it back, it happened so quickly, it was such a blur at the time. If you watch it back, you don't realise that a lovely bit of skill to send the defender, wasn't it, on the edge of the box, or 25 yards from goal. And then he's like, "Thank you very much, I'm going to put this in." And he puts that little bit of bounce on the shot, so it goes over the defender trying to slide in and stop it. And it's 3-1, and Jordan Gibson's got his first career hat-trick. And, yeah, again, at that point, he just went absolutely wild in that way. I jumped up so high that I think I had a rush of blood to the head, and I had to sit down for a minute because I was going to pass out. I did look at because anyone who follows me on Instagram will know I put up a picture at the playoff final at Wembley showing my heart rate monitor on my watch, and I think it got to 134. Got to 150 during this game. I don't know how, because it wasn't even that scary at times. I just, maybe the heat or whatever, I don't know. But yeah, one of my favourite things, Dan, I've been watching some of the vlogs that the Bolton fans have done from this game, is there's a great thing about that third goal, is the second it hits the back of the net, on all those videos, you hear this collective noise of plastic seats flipping up and clunking, of people getting up to leave. It's just absolutely wonderful. I'm like, yes, that's one of the best noises I've heard in ages. Although, I actually have to say, you've seen the club's video, haven't you, of the away end celebrations when that goal goes in? Yeah. It's just brilliant. Yeah, that clown who claims that we've got dead limbs or whatever it was on Twitter. Absolute nonsense, but there you go. And there you go, that was it. That was the final real chance of the game. Saw the last few minutes out. And, yeah, I think we're in agreement. One of the best away days in a long, long time, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was certainly up there. I mean, probably top 10 material for me, to be honest.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. A big away following, up in League One. It's nothing to do with this being like a biggest game in history, just a good away day, wasn't it? And got to say, some of the things that made it good was obviously the huge away following, 4,407. A bit mentioned for that, Dan, because I know you work in the rail industry, so you'll have an idea of all the issues that are happening on Friday night. For those fans to get down, I'll give a little bit of credit to the rail operators. They managed to get a few trains on in the end, didn't they, from Carlisle to Preston to get people down. But what an effort for them all to get to the game.
Oh, yeah. We actually think our train was a bit later than some of the others, and it was really quiet hours. But on the way down, the guard actually said, "Oh, there'll be nothing going north after 4:30," and I was like, "Well, it is. I know it is." I mean, I had access to feeds that aren't as open as National Rail, etc. Yeah. But there was clearly trains running, and one laugh on the way back, we had this weird queuing system at Bolton Station, which didn't work. We were all queuing for the wrong platform, so we all had to walk right down the platform, over the bridge and along the other platform. And when we got into Preston, on platform 3, on platform 4 there was a Transpennine for Carlisle, and everyone's like, "Quick!" And the doors didn't open for about 3 minutes. And then once they opened, there was the biggest charge of the Light Brigade across the forecourt at Preston Station. About 300 folk literally crammed onto a Transpennine. You could see all the customers who were thinking, "Oh, we'll be pulling off in a minute." Just saw this horde come running over, and yeah, we ended up earlier than we expected, so all good.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, we so obviously we were going back to Manchester to get the train back to Liverpool after the game, and we, like you, joined the queuing system because we got there and we were kind of like, because there was a queue for the Manchester platform, for the Manchester bound Bolton and Manchester bound platform, but that was all full of Bolton fans. We thought, I don't really want to join that queue, so we went and joined what was the Carlisle fans heading to Preston platform queue. And we did say to like the stewards, whatever they were managing it, like, look, we are going to Manchester. Is this okay to queue it? And like, yeah, it's fine. When you go on, just stay on the platform that you go on to. It was a bit the way they handled it, because they said, oh, anyone going to Manchester, you'll be let on soon. One of the police officers said, and then it turns out we weren't. We had to wait for the next train after that. So there was a bit of a kick-off about that. And to be fair on the police officer, it wasn't his fault. He was giving duff information, and he was trying to explain that all to us. And then someone jokingly said to him, who do you support? And he goes, Stockport County, so thank you very much. So he wasn't very happy. Fair play at the lad, like he made a bit of a joke about it. But yeah, it was generally it was good-natured down there. There wasn't any real issues, a bit of to-ing and fro-ing, I think, with fans shouting or whatever. And, I'm sure we've got a 6-second review from Mike, which I'll play in a minute, where I think he'll talk about us walking past the pub, probably, I think, after the game. But yeah, brilliant in terms of that. I've got to say, atmosphere was fantastic as well from those fans. The noise from start to finish.
Yeah.
I've got that, the da-da-da-da song stuck in my head now. I couldn't get that out for days afterwards. I can't remember what the tune is now. You'll probably remember better than me. CUFC. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that stuck in my head for quite a while on the way back. But yeah, brilliant for that. I've got to say, actually, it's a great away end, that one. It really is. Like, the concourse is a fairly decent size. Plenty of your things inside. Considering it's 25 years old, because sometimes you get some of them and that they've not really been designed that well in terms of the space and that sort of thing. View-wise, perfectly fine. You could see everything you needed. And got to say as well, like the atmosphere in there, it's well designed because it keeps the noise in really well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the roof lends it to that. I mean, there is a bit of wasted space in the corners from the way the roofs work, but like I say, it keeps the noise sort of in a bit. And
they don't really need that space, do they? They don't. It's not like they sell out every week or anything, so it works pretty fine, I think, for them probably. But yeah, lovely stuff. A real battling performance. Bit of sunshine in October as well, about 22, 23 degrees. I was sweltering by the time kick-off arrived. It was so warm. But yeah, like I said, even queuing for the train afterwards didn't feel too bad. It was quite an enjoyable trip back. Yeah, as you mentioned before, brave of Simo to stick with the 4-3-3. It's worth the treat. Something I think we'll probably stick with for a little bit, I'd imagine, at the moment. Well, let's talk about individual performances then, Dan. Where should we start with this one?
Well, the obvious starting point is obviously Jordan Gibson, isn't it?
Yes. Unbelievable performance. I mean, just a few stats before we get into the talking about his performances. First hat-trick for the Blues since Nathan Thomas versus Forest Green Rovers in January 2020. It's the first League One hat-trick for the Blues since Gary Medine versus Hartlepool United in September 2010. It's going back a bit, isn't it?
Was that the 4-0 when Michalik scored as well?
Yeah, from like 45 yards. The same day that
Eckert missile out his boot.
Yeah, I nearly missed. I was in the press box and I looked up and saw Chester roll the ball to him and he hammered it in the net. And that was also the day I think Gary got sentenced for his court case as well. So yeah, all fun and games, wasn't it, really? But there you go. Just talk about Gibbo then. We've been singing his praises all season. Another brilliant performance from him, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, he really, does he thrive on the big crowd, the big stage sort of thing? I don't know. It clicked for him perfectly, didn't it? He's like you said, he's played well most of this season. He's had the odd bad game, but in general, he's been probably our strongest performer, pretty much.
That's a good point.
He got his just rewards.
I think it's a good point there, actually, about the big crowd thing, because you think back to it, he likes a big atmosphere, doesn't he? You think back to those games, the games against Bradford when he's played well, in the playoffs and in the league games, and obviously the game against Stockport at Wembley as well. He really thrives on that, and it seems to lift his performance quite a bit. he's like he's taking charge of games, isn't it? I think we sort of mentioned it before, haven't we? That basically Moxon, he's not able to get into games as much at the moment, is he? Simply because he's getting marked out of them. But that's handing an opportunity to Jordan, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah,
And he's taken it as well,
Yeah, absolutely. And, not just playing in midfield, he's played in the centre midfield role, he's played on the wing this season. He's shown how adaptable he is in terms of that. Technically up there as one of our best players, isn't he, I think, as well, in terms of the way he uses the ball. Really, really impressive. And, we keep saying it, but, new contract, something to look at once hopefully the takeover gets sorted.
I think he'll be at the top end of the list.
I think Simo's actually even said that, hasn't he? I think he was in the post-match interview thing or the thing ahead of the game.
There'll be a few at the bottom end of the list after midweek, apparently.
Well, yes, we'll talk about that when we preview the Leyton Orient game, maybe. But yeah, fantastic. Like he's actually, and the thing is, he's a hard worker as well. I think that goes a little bit unspoken sometimes. He's not, you can get wingers who aren't prepared to put a shift in, aren't they? But he really, really does. He works hard. He can get a bit frustrated at times, but that's he just wants to do as well as he can, doesn't he? So there you go. Let's talk on to another performance, Dan. And then I think we both agree this man would have been man of the match if it wasn't for Jordan's hat-trick. Sam Lavelle.
I thought he was absolutely class on Saturday. Especially given he got a booking after, 7 minutes or so?
Yeah, soft booking that one was as well. I think later in the game maybe I'd understand it, but 7 minutes in.
I have no problem. I had no problem with the booking if that's how you're going to ref the game. But there was 3 or 4 tackles later in that half that were worse, and they weren't getting bookings. And me and a lad beside me were like, "You set your stall out by booking early. Surely these are all bookings, But we'll never understand referees.
No, we won't. With Lavelle, obviously, we kind of thought he had a little bit of a shaky start his first couple of games and was just finding his feet a little bit. But he's really coming to his own in this last month or so, hasn't he, really? And, the fact that Simo's made him captain in Hunt's absence tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah, it speaks volumes, that, doesn't it?
Yeah, he's just... That's the kind of play he is. And as I say, he was impressive again on Saturday. Really properly lead his performance. And he's forming a nice partnership with Mellish at the back, isn't he?
Yeah. That's 2 games now they've played together.
Yeah.
And they've done all right. Peterborough and Bolton against 2 of the better teams in the division. Yeah,
and Mellish has shown in those games he can be quite disciplined, can't he? In terms of sitting there and just be a centre-back like he was when he was at Gateshead. So, it shows he's a better player than Chris Beach ever gave him credit for, I think it's fair to say. More on that man later, by the way. But yeah, really, really good to see. Couple more individuals I want to talk about. Alfie McCalman, second game in a row. He had a bit of a slow start on his return. He wasn't quite making the impact he did when he first arrived last season. But last couple of games, he's shown what he's about, hasn't he?
So I think with some of our players, I think there's possibly been a bit of a playoff hangover. In that they haven't had as long a break as normal.
Yeah.
The bodies haven't had the time, etc.
Yeah, that might be a fair point, that, to be fair. I think I think this was probably one of Alfie's best games for us, actually, to be fair. Even though he didn't score a goal like he has done a few times last season. Just in terms of the way he used the ball when he got it, he was very quick on the front foot, wanted to get us forward, and setting up that chance for Maguire was a perfect example of that. So, more of the same, please, from Alfie. I'm sure he'll be starting again this weekend, I'd imagine. Someone at the opposite end of his career, but certainly showed the young guns how it's done, didn't he? Joe Garner. Forget the penalty miss. That was a real target man's performance from him, wasn't it?
Yeah. Any aspiring old school number 9, as in a target man 9, like Derek Holmes was 20 years ago for us, would do well to watch Joe Garner's performance at Bolton, because it wasn't perfect, but he did a lot of good stuff. And, he gets his clatter in, he gets put about in that, and he'll always have a slight complaint, that's just in his nature, but he seemed to have it right. I'm not sure that's the right word. He just seemed to have it at the right temperament level on Saturday.
Yeah. I think
and it worked.
Yeah, I think you're right. His temperament was right on Saturday. He basically got into a good zone, didn't he? Basically, he was like, okay, I'm happy with how I'm playing today. And to be fair on Ian Evatt, he gave him a lot of credit after the game. He basically said that Garner bullied his two centre-backs, didn't he? You know, I think he said that they missed Santos because he felt he would have maybe been able to deal with him a bit better. I'm not so convinced based on what I've seen of Santos in the past. But yeah, Garner was fantastic in terms of it. I think he won pretty much every header he went for, didn't he? And their defender just really couldn't cope with his physical side. So brilliant stuff. And who would have thought, going back, when was it? Back in August when we were thinking, he might be on his way out. He's been out the match day, scored a couple of times. He'd start 2 full games in a row. Pretty much near enough. And potentially he's going to be making it 3 in a row this weekend. Never would have expected that, would you?
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff.
We can maybe rest him when we're 4-0 up after an hour.
Yes, indeed. Bolton, we've already sort of touched on that already. I don't get how they have to be so stubborn all the time. I totally get you've got a philosophy and you want to stick to it, but they've got players to mix it up as well. That's what makes it weird, but hey ho, they're lost, I guess, in that sense. Right, 6-second reviews, Dan. We've got a few to get through. Not all the ones that are on the list, I should say. I've given you a list here, but there's a couple who aren't on there that are doing it, but also some that are on there that aren't doing it. Anyway, do you want to do that first? Do you want to do that first, or do we want to hear from the Trotter Chatter podcast and what one of their guys had to say about the game?
Yeah, we'll do that first.
Yes. So the Trotter Chatter podcast, very kindly, one of their guys came on the podcast last week. Really, really appreciate that, to be fair. This isn't that guy, I don't think. I think it's someone else who's on their pod. They did a post-mortem of the results. This guy doesn't seem to have a very high opinion of us, does he? Let's play the clip.
It was really important. You know, they're a team that's just come up from League Two as well. They are in minnow, like Carlisle is in minnow. That's probably one of the greatest results in their history on Saturday. Like, they brought more. So I got the train on Saturday and I was chatting to a Carlisle fan on the train, and he said they were bringing more to the Reebok than they did for their last home game. So They had more in the end of our ground than they did in their last home game. And just like always, their players knew what it meant.
Right, before we talk a bit more about that. I know what you're going to say here.
They mean before Paul Simpson returned.
Yes, I think he's misheard the guy. I'll give him a little bit of credit here. He's misheard the guy. The guy's probably said, and this is something we've been saying all week, we've taken more to that game than we did to our last game under Keith Millen before Paul Simpson was appointed, because we were an absolute shambles at that point. We were on the verge of going out of the league. We were a mess. Now, there's every chance we'll double the amount we took there for the home game this weekend. Potentially. We'll be pushing towards 9,000, I'd imagine, because it seems to be a bit of a push to try and get a bigger crowd again in. The other stuff's just absolute guff, isn't it?
Yeah, basically.
I mean, greatest result in our history, mate. We've beaten Roma in the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
We've beaten Chelsea and Spurs and Middlesbrough to go top of the Football League. For a club our size, we're not a massive club. We're first to admit that. In the top, we've been to Wembley in '95 and we had second biggest. There was more people at our final against Birmingham in 1995 than there was for Liverpool v Bolton in the League Cup final that season. So don't make out you're the big team. Just a little bit of it's just pathetic, really, isn't it? Really, it was a bit of a. To be fair, the guy who came on was good with us, and we were just having a little bit of fun there. And if they want to pick out something stupid I've said in the past, more than welcome to, because there's probably stuff in there.
There's plenty of them.
There's plenty of them. It just all it makes me think is this.
Dear Lord, what a sad little life, Jane.
Yes, what a sad little life. I think we've talked enough about that fella, haven't we? Should we get on to 6-second reviews then? We'll start with Michael from Formby. He sent us in one.
Where'd you start? It's one of the best away games in a long, long time. We were comfortably the better team. Our game plan worked to perfection. It's hard to pick out individual players, but Sean Maguire, while he could have scored a couple of goals, he was a constant thorn in their side. For me, it's no coincidence that obviously he won us the penalty at Bolton, but he's been involved in some of our other penalty shouts as well. I think he's a very difficult player to defend against, and I think when he really gets going scoring, I think he could go on a bit of a run for us. He's a very, very good player. I've noticed as well that when Bolton scored, sometimes you got about 5 or 6 seconds of players been berated, and then eventually we'll maybe start singing United and get behind the team. Literally, the second the ball hit the back of the net, all of the fans were right behind the team, supporting the team. No one was on anyone's backs. It was fantastic to see, and I think we really were the 12th man.
Pretty comprehensive, and Mike there couldn't disagree with that. Yeah. What do you think about his point about Sean Maguire?
Yeah.
Absolutely bang on, isn't it?
I'm going to be honest here. I'm just going to agree with everything anyone says because it was the biggest result ever.
Yeah, I'm surprised that what Mike didn't mention in the story about when we were walking back to the station. For those who haven't been before, you have to walk past the Harvest pub, don't you? Which is a home fans only pub. We were going to go in there and thought, well, we'll go in there and kill a bit of time before we have to get our train. But they wouldn't let us in because we didn't have a season ticket, which is ridiculous. But but there's a little beer garden behind that, and there's a little fence, and some of their fans were looking over it, and they started lobbing things at us, lobbing various bits of shrapnel. But then as we're walking by, I looked down, I was like, "You just lobbed a pound coin at us." And Mike's like, "Oh, thanks very much, cheers." Picked it up and put it in his pocket and took it home with him. So there you go. Yeah, pretty comprehensive there from Mike. Who do you want next? I've got Andy Lee, Craig Robson or Greg Bummer. I'll do Greg's first because Greg did a 37-second review on the 6-second review. So here's what Greg had to say.
What a result. I can't believe that. Big shout out to my mate Mike Patterson for driving when we were due to go on the train. Sorry for waking up at 6:15 to discuss it, mate. I thought we were brilliant yesterday. I thought Jordan Gibson was unbelievable, even if he hadn't scored a goal. Lavelle as well. Excellent game. I thought Maguire had a great game, even though he had 2 really, really good chances. That's the game where we've had the most chances this season. It was really, really encouraging. Bolton looked a good team, but we defended brilliantly. It was, to a man, a great performance. What a day. A great atmosphere. Everything was brilliant. Up the Blues.
Hey, straight to the point from Greg there, wasn't it? Everything covered, 37 seconds, bang, lovely stuff. Got to say, we've been taking a bit of the mick out some of the Bolton fans. I'm going to do a little bit more now because I'm going to talk about some of the vloggers. Mr. Fogden. All the kids will know about him, won't they? I think we sort of vaguely know.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, everyone's heard of him. He's a bit of a prat, to be brutally honest. Him and his dad predicted we were going to finish 24th in their season prediction thing. So
there was only 3 getting relegated, wasn't there? I can remember that.
Ridiculous. But he predicted that, and yeah, I think that was his first Bolton game in like 4 months or something like that. He was saying, which doesn't seem to make sense because that would be into June, wouldn't it? When there wouldn't be any games. Yeah, he was just a prat, wasn't he, on his thing as well? He came across a bit of an idiot, but very funny watching him practically crying when the second goal went in. Very, very amusing. But actually, I've got to say, most of the Bolton fans I spoke to after the game were spot on. Really, really good people, and said, you were the better side and you deserved it. So
yeah, there was a lot of that on Twitter as well.
Yeah, absolutely. They're all pretty sound, to be fair, the majority of them, so it's a fair play. Right, we'll do Andy Lee left. We'll leave the best till last. Craig can go last, so here's Andy's.
This is my 60-second review of yesterday's 3-1 away win at Bolton Wanderers. What a result. Perfect away day performance. As I mentioned on social media, we've had 31% of the ball, made 300 less passes than Bolton, but yet we had 3 times as many more shots on target than them, and we scored 3 times as many goals. It's not all about how much possession you have of the football, it's what you do when you have it, and just importantly, what you do when you're out of possession. Gibson will rightly get the plaudits with his hat-trick performance and receiving his 3rd man of the match in 2 weeks, but I thought the defence were immense, as was Hawley. There were bodies on the line, blocking shots, defenders hoovering up all the loose balls, in particular Sam Lavelle, who again was excellent considering he was booked 7 minutes into the game. Another huge game next week, as we play a team we could leapfrog on the table in Leyton Orient. Up the Blues.
Yeah, straight to the point from Andy there as well. All good stuff covered there. Fair point. Hurley as well. Another great game from him. Pretty much secured back their first choice position for the goalkeeper. I think it's fair to say now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for the foreseeable.
Yeah, I, in the nicest way possible, I won't be surprised if we're looking at another keeper for January to come in to replace Anderson, because he's not really made the impact at the moment we'd hoped. The point about passes was quite interesting. 300 less passes than Bolton, because the pass success stats show that our pass success was 66%, which is quite good for us, actually, because sometimes we're down towards the low 50s. Bolton's was 83%. But what's the point if you're just passing it amongst yourselves with no incisive pass, you know? You've got to take those risks, haven't you? And that's what we did. So there you go. Right. Should we do Craig's now then? I should apologise now for anyone who downloaded last week's episode early on. You'll have heard the wrong 60-second review for Craig, won't you? Because I cocked up and uploaded the wrong one into the soundboard. And somehow neither of us noticed when we recorded, did we? I'm not sure how, but there you go. Right, here's Craig's 6-second review.
Hi Lee, this is my review for the Bolton game. Bolton, remember, right? Not Derby. You know, the Bolton game that Jordan Gibson scored a hat-trick. I mean, good performance from him, well deserved, and so far he's running probably many others like player of the season, well obviously so far, but it wasn't just him, to be fair, that played well. I thought it was a strong team performance, and that Maguire played well. He should have scored when he was one-on-one though. Everybody played well except for a few mistakes in the first half. But, you know, after 15-20 minutes, we started to play football, started making runs. I thought Oblade did really well when he came on, and it was definitely a game for him, with Bolton trying to play such a high line. Yet again, I thought Hawley did well again, and he came and claimed everything that he could, whereas Anderson would have possibly stayed on his line. An amazing amount of away fans as well for this one. Really good to see, especially with all the trains being cancelled. Hopefully we can make a habit of winning on to the next one, up the Blues.
Good to the point there, Craig. Thank you for reminding me of my cock-up last week. Cheeky little sod. Right, that's all the 6-second reviews done then, Dan. Time for a quick roundup of the League One results from the weekend before we take a break and go into the second half of the show. Looking down there, the early kick-off last weekend, Oxford United 2, Bristol Rovers 1. Joey Barton in the headlines again this week, I think. With some of his comments about, was it about women football pundits or something else, I think? But never out the news, that fella, is he? Charlton 2, Blackpool 2. Cheltenham, they've got a goal.
Yeah, that must have been a cheer.
You'd imagine, 1-1 against Derby as well. They're not a bad team to get a goal against. So 1-1 draw, that one finished. Exeter 0, Barnsley 1. Exeter have dropped off a little bit now, haven't they? Since after their good start, they're sort of plateauing a little bit. Fleetwood 1, Wickham 4. That defeat of Wickham doesn't look too bad now, actually, does it, when you see that? You know, Fleetwood, though, it looks like it's going to be a real slog for them, doesn't it? Especially when Marriott's still scoring goals. But you'd imagine Oxford probably going to come back in to try and sign him again in January, wouldn't you? It'd be difficult to keep hold of him if, they're right up near the top. Leyton Orient 2, Reading 1, Peterborough 2, Lincoln City 0. Portsmouth got a 2-0 win over Port Vale, still not lost a game. Shrewsbury 1, Northampton 0, and Stevenage 1-0 win over Wigan. I'm looking at the table here, Dan. Portsmouth very much leading the way, no defeats. Oxford just behind them, although they've played one game less, so Oxford could go ahead of them actually if they win their game in hand. So yeah, other than that, Barnsley, we kind of thought they might be up there. Peterborough and Bolton as well, obviously. Derby are just starting to find their way up there as well. A bit of an unbeaten run for them. And like I said, your likes of Port Vale and Exeter are just starting to slip down the table a little bit. Cambridge have really slipped down after their good start, and it's all just starting to tighten up a little bit, isn't it? It's just at the bottom where it's looking desperate for Cheltenham, of course, but as well as that, Wigan, they've had 4 defeats in a row now, and even Reading, 4 games without a win. So it could be a real time. And Reading potentially going into administration as well, possibly soon, which could, it's horrible to say, but could benefit us, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's obviously skewed at the bottom of the league because Wigan and Reading just seem to be going through all sorts. Cheltenham, I know you can't say it in the start of October, but Cheltenham really look gone already.
Yeah.
They've not won a game yet, and the 3 wins behind. And Fleetwood just doesn't seem to happen for them. So, it could be the fact that 2, maybe 3 places are decided quite early this season.
So, if we can get some good reinforcements in January, you never know. We could get ourselves a little bit off the table, not away from trouble, hopefully. Have to wait and see. Right, we'll take a short break, Dan, and then we'll be back with the second half of the show.
Hi, I'm Owen Moxon, and you're listening to the Brunton Bugle.
Okay, into the second half of the show, and this is normally the point where we do the Behind Enemy Lines section. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to arrange one this week. The guys from the Lowdown podcast, we speak to them each season. I think a couple of years ago with the whole lockdown things, we were speaking to them 3 or 4 times a week. I think it was ridiculous. But unfortunately, they're taking a little bit of break from recording at the moment until, I think, November. I think there's a little bit of sort of feeling there after what happened with the fan passing away at one of their games recently. It's just they're taking a little break. So, yeah, we wish those guys all the best, and, yeah, we'll catch up with them later in the season. Okay, Dan, should we do the question again that Mike sent in? Let's try and get our answers to this. Just remind everyone.
I've been thinking on this. I think I've got at least 3.
Okay, well let's hear the question again, just to remind everyone.
Now, if you remember from last week's question, Leyton Orient manager Richie Wellens was in League One Team of the Year in 2007-2008. Now, in that Doncaster Rovers team that he played for, he had 5 teammates that would later go on to play for Carlisle. Who are they?
Bing! Right. Off the top of my head, Jason Price straight away, the first one I thought.
Jason Price and Lewis Guy for definite for me.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they were both there. Was Billy Painter there then, or was that before?
The third one that I had in my head as a definite, Sean McDade. I'm sure he was Doncaster around that time.
You are 100% right. Definitely Sean McDade. So Sean McDade's in there. So that's 3.
Now, I've got another, but I'm positive this player came from Doncaster to us, possibly on loan, but I'm not sure if it's the right season, if he was there in time, and that's Gareth Taylor.
Oh.
He definitely came from Doncaster. I'm just not sure if he was maybe a year or 2 later.
I feel like we had him on loan that season from there.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I thought it was maybe 09-ish.
You might be right, actually. I think you might be right. All right, we'll go Gareth Taylor. We're piling up the strikers here, potentially, aren't we?
I can't think. It's got to be another curveball, isn't it?
It's going to be one of these really smart-ass ones that he's come up with.
It'll be someone at the very start of the career who played one League Cup game or something.
Oh! Adam Collin. Was he not part of their squad on loan that season?
I think he was a bit later.
Or maybe been... No, in fact... trying to think. Had he already gone to Reds by then? I think he'd already gone to Reds, actually. No, I think he was there a bit early, actually. No. Right, so we're going to go with Jason Price. Who else did you say? Jason Price, Sean McDade.
I'm sure Adam Collin was about 2003, 4.
He was, you're right. It was that season. You're right, yeah. So we're going Jason Price, Sean McDade. Who were the ones you said? Lewis Guy.
Gareth Taylor. Maybe.
And should we just throw Billy Painter in there because we don't know?
Not 100%. I don't think Painter's right.
No, I think he might have been later, possibly. Anyway, right, here's the answers to Mike's question this week.
And they were Lewis Guy, Gareth Taylor, Sean McDade, Anthony Griffith, and Jason Price.
Oh, Anthony Griffith.
He must have started his career there.
Oh wow, that was a curveball.
I'm just typing him up. And,
well, he's a former Orient player as well, isn't he? So that ties in quite nicely, actually.
Yeah, he started. Well, he actually was at Glasshoughton Welfare.
Wow.
And he joined Doncaster in 2005, and he was with them until 2008.
Montserrat's finest. Right?
Yeah.
There you go. Right, let's talk about the Orient game then, Dan. Yeah, interesting one, this one, isn't it? Because we've had... I know we played Stevenage already as another one of the teams that got promoted with us. But it's always interesting to test yourself and compare yourself against the teams who got promoted with, especially the ones who finished as champions. I think there's a fair few parallels between us and them this season in terms of how we've done. In terms of looking back at their signings and stuff like that. they've kept together a decent chunk of the solid core of their squad, haven't they? Especially defensively. And that's probably going to help them in the long term, like it will help for us.
Yeah, I sort of see Leyton Orient as a bit of a similar club to us. We've played them a lot over the years. There's definite potential there, and they've kept quite a core. I mean, losing the keeper was a big blow.
Yeah, Vigouroux.
Vigouroux. Yeah, that's a big blow because he was a level above League Two last season.
Yeah,
I don't know if he was Burnley level, but.
Well, he's sitting in the stands at Burnley, isn't he? He's the third choice keeper there, but he's probably at least, if not more, tripled his wage from what he's on Orient. So
10, 15 grand a week now,
Exactly, set for life.
But I actually see us and Orient being quite close together in the league at the end of the season. I think we've both got enough to stay up. Obviously, they're starting a little bit better than us, but we're quite similar clubs. We've both, we've both got potential. They've obviously got a better catchment area for players with all the big teams around them.
But they have more competition from other clubs nearby. That's the only thing they've
got. True. I mean, we know there's National League teams pay good money around there as well and whatnot. So
Yeah. Looking at their summer transfer business, what do you make of it, Dan? Similar to us in that they've brought back a few of the players they had last season, haven't they? I think El Mazzuni, who was fantastic for them last season, probably a little bit below Moxon's level, and that's not really a disparaging thing to say, is it? He was right up there as one of the best midfielders in the division. Back on loan from Ipswich. And I think Ed Turns, he was on loan there as well from Brighton for the second half of last season, if I remember rightly.
The one that stands out for me is Ethan Galbraith. I'd have loved to have signed this lad. I think he's a real player. There was rumours of championship teams interested in him.
Yeah,
and I think he's a quality player at this level. Dan Agyai's one as well. We were linked with him, weren't we? It was thought we maybe missed out on him.
He was very good for Crewe last season, wasn't he? A poor Crewe side as well, wasn't he? Even like a decent one. He really stood out. He's an interesting one. The goalkeeper Saul Bryn did really well at Swindon last season. He's not quite. The problem is he's got such a difficult job replacing Vigouroux, hasn't he? It was always going to be a challenge for him. He's found it a bit tougher at Orient. There were a couple of interesting other additions in attack. I mean, Jordan Graham from Birmingham City is quite a decent player, isn't he? Again, probably a fairly decent coup for them. And Joe Pigott as a target man, that's a pretty decent addition to this level too, isn't it?
Yeah. The one name that always Sotriou for some reason always seems to do all right whenever I see his name. I don't know why. He seems to. I'm just trying to bring up his figures here, and typically
he's in a
there he is.
Yeah.
He just seems to get goals, not massive numbers, but he'll get. He's one of those. He'll get 10 a season and make another 5. So he does his job in the team, and he's only 23. He's played a lot of football. He's similar to like some Jack Armour for ourselves, and he's played his football, and it's good to see these sort of players in the league.
He's an interesting one, isn't he? Because he's one of the many Cypriots that they sign at Orient. For those who aren't aware, you'll know this well from having living down there. There's sort of just to the west of that, there's quite a big sort of Cypriot community, isn't there, in North London, around Harringay way.
Yes. So
they seem to pick up quite a few players, because there was a lad who went to Peterborough, Hector. I can't remember his surname is now. The lad who went to Peterborough, the midfielder anyway. He's another one of them, isn't he? Yeah. And there's one who left this summer to go and join a Cypriot second division side as well, Anthony Georgiou. Other departures in the summer, I think. Interesting ones. Paul Smith going to QPR. That was a bit of a blow as well, returning to QPR. Having been there in the past, because he was a big part of their creative sort of force last season, wasn't he? But of the squad who are already there, obviously, anyone else who stands? I think Omar Beckles is injured at the moment, isn't he? He's a very good defender in the lower league levels. But Darren Pratley...
Is he not the PFA rep now as well, Beckles?
He is as well. I think he's the chair of the PFA, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of other players, Darren Pratley, still going strong, isn't he? At the age of, 37, 38 now, I think he is. I'm just loading up his thing actually to check out exactly how old he is. He's 38, yeah, he turns 39 in next April. And he's still going strong. I don't think they use him as much, do they, these days? He's more as a sub coming on, but he's done an incredible job, hasn't he, down the years in every midfield he's been in.
Yeah, he's probably their version of Paul Huntington for us with his age and his experience, And yes, coming up a league, these players maybe won't play quite as much. They'll feel it a bit more in the legs, but just their presence in dressing rooms, in training, it's invaluable.
Yeah. Theo Archibald was obviously brilliant against us last season, wasn't he? He scored 2 great goals. George Moncourt, I didn't realise he's 30. I thought he was like in his mid-20s for some reason. I still thought he was that young, but no, he's a bit older than I first thought. But
seems to have been around for years.
Yeah, it's just a weird one, isn't it, really? But
because I can remember him at Colchester.
Yeah, was he at West Ham that he started out at, if I remember rightly? Or...
Possibly, yeah.
It seems to ring a bell, but yeah. No, it's a pretty decent player. I'm just loading up his thing now, just double check that I've got that right. He started at West Ham. He was at West Ham, Tottenham youth before West Ham. And yeah, you're right, Colchester and Barnsley. He's been out of Luton, obviously, he was out for a couple of years as well before he went to Hull. And pretty good player too. Last time at Orient, they won 2-1 against Reading, as we mentioned. Brilliant goal from Jordan Brown to put them ahead. A bit of a scrappy one for Bindon to equalise for Reading, and then Moncourt finished from a few yards out from a corner. So, they'll be pretty happy with that as a result. Although Reading aren't in particularly great form. Looking through the other stuff. Overall form, they're 11th in the last 6 games form table. I think they'll be pretty happy with that. The record in last 6 league games is lost 1, drawn 1, lost 1. So, up and down, but 3 wins in the last 6, that's pretty decent. United, should say, are now up to 17th. They're creeping up that last 6 form table. The last 6 results for United, obviously, are drawn, lost, drawn, 1. So, we're just only 2 losses in the last 6 is not too bad, I suppose. Would you say?
No, not at all. Not at all.
I mean, that's averaging about a point a game. If we all average about 1.1, 1.2 points a game for the rest of the season, we'd probably stay up, don't we? And you'd be happy with that for the first season back up here.
You've got to remember our last 2 games as well. We've played 2 teams who we expect to be up there.
Yeah, and we got 4 points off them. You've got to be pleased with that at the end of the day. Referee for this one, Ed Duckworth from Lancashire. It's his first season as an EFL referee, and as a result, he's never taken charge of a United game before.
Do you know what team he supports?
No, I don't.
I do.
How do you know that?
Because I know a referee who knows him.
Oh. Who does he support? Is he a Preston fan?
Correct.
I thought that because I only said that because he's from Lancashire. That's the reason why I said it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paddy's a Preston fan.
Oh,
but he's been fast-tracked.
Well, that's pretty clear because he's only had 1 season in National League before this, hasn't he? So he's clearly one they're impressed with. Last season, he took charge of 18 games, handing out 61 yellows and 4 red cards. And this season, he's done 9 games so far, handing out 49 yellows and 1 red. So not too over the top.
The words that I got as a description was, he's very by the book.
Oh, well, there you go.
And I think that's sort of backed up with those figures, isn't it?
That's exactly what we need in a game against Leyton Orient and Richie Wellens, isn't it, really? But there you go.
Yeah.
63rd meeting between the 2 sides. Pretty balanced at the moment. 24 wins for United, 15 draws, and 23 wins for the O's. In terms of recent results, though, Dan, we lost both encounters against them last season, and we've not beaten them in the last 7 meetings at Brunton Park. The last win was a 4-1 victory in January 2012. That's quite a while, isn't it? Waiting for a win. They must be very much looking forward to their trip up this weekend. Right, before we talk about United, Dan, it's time for Play for Both. It's a bit where you get to shine. You get to tell us a bit about a player who's played for both clubs. And who have you gone for this week?
Let me just... it's not often I pick someone born in the 19th century.
Ooh.
You know who this is straight away.
I'm very excited about this one because I like this one.
He was born in Carlisle in January 1884. and I believe he was in the first Carlisle United team.
Yeah, I think he might have even played for Shuttengate United before that.
Yeah, and I'm talking about Bob Spottiswoode.
I mean, if you're going to talk about a player from the early 20th century who played football, and you said, if you told me, right, there's a footballer called Bob Spottiswoode, what era, what time do you reckon he played? Yeah. You'd 100% say, oh, he played in the early 20th century. And you'd be right.
Yeah.
You'd be bang on right.
So, actually, there's very little info on him playing for Carlisle, because obviously stats weren't really a thing.
Yeah, it's pre-football league.
He was a half-back for us, which was a defender.
Yeah.
And he must have moved down to London because he went to Croydon Common for a season. And then he joined Crystal Palace, where up until sort of World War One, he played coming up for getting on to nearly 200 games across 6 seasons. So he obviously, did really well there. Obviously, there was a bit of a break for World War One. And then he made one appearance for Clapton Orient that we know of. Leyton Orient obviously used to be called Clapton Orient back in the day.
Yeah.
Apparently, he also appeared for Aberdeen Athletic, for Herbert, Sittingbourne and Elsecar Main.
Yeah.
But in 1922,
this is brilliant.
Plot twist Claxon, he became manager of Inter Milan.
The first Englishman to manage Inter Milan.
Barmy, just 1 minute you're playing half-back for Carlisle, a few years later you're post-World War as well, you're Inter Milan manager for 2 years, which is just incredible.
I'm going to do a bit more research on this fella at some point, because it's a fascinating story. I've seen a few things online, and I can't really confirm if this is true, that he might have been the reason why they call managers like the Mister basically over there, because of the fact he was Englishman. Yeah. That might not be right. It might be someone else that potentially is linked to. But his story gets even more interesting. Go on.
Yeah, there's sadly on his Wikipedia page, there's not much about him. But and he passed away in 1966 in his early 80s, living in Bromley. He actually had a brother called Joe who also played for Carlisle. And I think it was Man City from memory.
Yes, and I think he actually...
Swansea Town and not City.
Yeah. I think he played a few FA Cup games for Man City as well, but no, he didn't actually, I was looking at there. But yeah, he's an interesting one. But interestingly, he had another brother, Frank Spottiswoode, who was a rugby league player. And Frank played for Oldham Rugby League. He's one of their great players. Plays like 112 games for them. But he also played in the first ever international rugby league game, did Frank Spottiswoode. And
I don't know what Mrs. Spottiswoode was feeding these lads, but it worked.
Well, do you know where they grew up? Do you know where they lived? Because I had access to like all census records at some point when I was doing family history. I wonder where they lived in Carl stuff. You know where they lived? The Beehive.
Road. Oh, right.
Literally the family lived in the Beehive in the early days.
Wow.
Which is incredible. Bob's story is very interesting as well, because you can actually find newspaper articles about him. He got banned for allegedly match fixing and betting on matches.
That's it.
On his own matches in the 1950s. Yeah. But actually, it turns out I think he got his ban overturned, and he actually sued the Daily Mail because they tried to claim that he was basically in ruin, and he won his case apparently. The PFA helped him back then, or the original PFA. But he did then actually get done for setting up an illegal bookmakers in the 1950s in South London. Yeah. So, it's probably fair to say.
Bob Spottiswoode. Bit different from the normal type of players.
Oh, it's just like the nice little one. We're going to do something different with the pod soon in terms of feature episodes that I need to actually look into sorting. But we'll do a little bit on Bob Spottiswoode, one of those when I get all my research together on that. I'll quickly bash through the list then, Dan. Tristan Abrahams. Yeah, rather forget him, wouldn't you? Welling's finest these days. Nicky Adams, you forget that he played for Crawley and for Leyton Orient, don't you? He had that spell down south. Because you think of a Northwest player, really. Obviously, he was at Northampton as well, but there you go. Ben Anick, I think he seems to have played for everybody we've played for recently, actually. He comes up quite a lot. Stan Bowles, there's a legendary player for you. Sean Brisley, less legendary. Jamal Campbell-Rice, even more legendary. Oh, that doesn't make sense. That's bad English, isn't it? Even lesser legendary. Less of a legend. I don't know. Anyway, he's a legend in the sense that he cost us £500 though, isn't he? That's the key thing with Campbell Rice that everyone always remembers. Derek Clark, Mervyn Day. He had quite a long spell at Orient, didn't he? About 80 games, I think, for them. Mark Ellis had a loan spell there. Steve Finney, God rest his soul. David Galloway, Les Gore, Bobby Grant, Anthony Griffith, we mentioned earlier. Phil Hadland. Was he a loanee under Collins, wasn't he, I think?
Yeah, I think he was Collins, yeah.
He was quite good as well, I seem to remember, but there you go. The great man himself, Jabu Obire, Michael Liddell, Leon McSweeney, Tyrese Omatoya, Tom Parks, Bob Spot, as we mentioned before, and Luke Weaver, of course, as well. I did wonder if you'd do Luke Weaver, actually, but I think you did him last time we did that, didn't we? So
yeah,
kind of made sense not to do him, but there you go. Right, let's talk about United then quickly, Dan. Injury-wise, Paul Huntington's the only one to add to the list, isn't he? About 3 or 4 weeks he'll be out for. Dylan McGeough's probably about a couple of weeks still away from getting back into being available for selection. Coyote, about 10 weeks we seem to think, and Taylor Charters maybe 6 weeks, possibly.
Yeah, I think it was basically put as McGeough will be end of October, Charters end of November, Coyote end of December. And I think Huntington will be end of October as well.
Yeah, similar to McGeough.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're missing Kilsby and Nugent because they're both out on loan. But little shout out to Kai Nugent. Got his first goal for Annan Athletic, didn't he? Last weekend. Unfortunately, it was a 3-2 defeat to Cove Rangers, but you can't win them all.
Big game this weekend. Annan versus Queens.
Is it Queens? Is that Annan as well?
Next weekend. Next weekend, sorry.
Oh, wow. That'll be a good one, that one. Yeah, in terms of the team selection, I think and formation, I think at the moment, it's not broke. Don't fix it.
Yeah. After 4 points against two good teams would be silly to change it, I think. Unless there's any sort of injuries or,
Yeah, that kind of thing. I think the only thing really to discuss at the moment is the problem. This is something that Simo brought up in his post-match interview after the game that, look, we don't talk about the trophy games, do we? But I think it's unavoidable to talk about what Simo said after that game, isn't it, really, in terms of how angry he was about the performance that the fringe players put in.
I had a quick look at his comments, and he basically sort of said that Barkley and Whelan did their job as he expected they would, because they're coming in. Guy and Moxon were fine, and I think he said Luke Plange, was it?
Did he give him? I didn't hear about the bit about Plange.
I think it was Plange got he said about it, but basically nobody else was mentioned as having a go. So doesn't speak well for the likes of Edmondson, Butterworth, etc.
It's interesting because I wasn't obviously watching the game. I don't really take that much interest, but we have the Twitter alert set up to the Bugle account, don't we, for the official ones? So they come through to us. So I was seeing a few of them coming through while I was at a gig on Tuesday night. And I seen Edmondson was involved in some shots and some things, so I'm guessing his just overall performance wasn't that great. But you're right, it does not say a lot for the other ones, does it really? I mean, someone else I spoke to who watched it on possibly a dodgy stick suggested that he thought the two fullbacks were the only ones he deserved any credit out of that game. I've seen the goals. Anderson on the first one, I'm not sure what he's doing really. His positioning's pretty awful on it, but there you go. But it's a worry, isn't it, that the fringe players aren't really looking like they're going to be up to challenging the first team.
No, there's a tweet from Radio Cumbria today with like some of the Paul Simpson speak, and I would expect changes in January at the moment. Funnily enough, the reserves have got another game next week, Central League Cup against Blackpool, and they're actually letting fans in at this one. Penrith
nice.
At 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock on Tuesday. I think I'm off on Tuesday, so I'm gonna toddle down. I think if I've got nothing happening,
you can report back to us.
yeah.
Interesting. I think you're right. I think there's going to be big changes in January. I think you're probably going to see a fair few shipped out. I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Whelan does get even as good as he is. I think maybe just to free up a wage and give him a chance to find a club anyway. It's not the case that he's played badly. I feel like he's one that might just move on just to give him a chance to get his career going again. Yeah. He's probably not going to get too much game time the rest of the season. But yeah, some of the others, I think especially in attack, I think Butterworth's been a huge disappointment for me. just like I said, I don't know what kind of
Well,
players.
I posted actually on the Buzz's Back forum today. There seems to be a misconception that Butterworth has very little football, but 21-22 season, he spent the second half on loan at Fleetwood in League One, played a dozen games. And last season, he made 31 appearances for Port Vale in League One. So he's got 43 games, probably 50 plus with cups for League One teams in the last 2 years.
I just don't know because
I think his problem is he doesn't know his position.
100%, yeah. He's a half decent dribbler. He's got an okay long shot in him, but he hasn't really got the strength.
I actually think he would possibly play where Gibson plays, but A, he's got no chance at the moment, and B, if Gibson is injured or takes a knock or rested, Alfie McCalman probably pops in there.
Yeah, or Charters when he's fit.
Charters even, yeah.
Yeah, it just feels a bit of a letdown at the moment, really, isn't it? And I think I say as well, Edmonton's been a real letdown for me this season. I'm really disappointed how he's adapted really to League One. I thought he'd do better, but just not seeing it at the moment.
It just hasn't happened, and I hope it does still, because I think there's a player in there.
I hope.
But how long do you give it? It could be one of those where we get a couple of injuries in the forward line. Edmondson comes on, scores a goal, and it kick-starts him. But
he needs a goal. He really does need a goal soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, especially because I think did we both predict him to be top scorer this season, if I remember rightly?
Probably, yeah.
We're not particularly good at that one. Right, let's get to match predictions then, Dan. Good week for both of us in terms of predictions, especially for you.
Well, it was for me, and then I remember someone went, I think I'll take that score as well.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Might end up doing that again this week, you never know. So we both went for 3-1. I decided to go for different scores because I didn't think I could go for the same as you, which was a stupid mistake because you went for Gibson. And I was thinking of Gibson and Lavelle. But Gibson, Lavelle, and who else did you go for? Was it Edmondson, I think? Remember rightly?
I can't remember now.
Oh, maybe I think I went for Edmonton, actually. But yeah, so you got 4 points, I got 3, which means we're now both tied on 8 points each. Mike went for a 2-2 draw, and he's still stuck on no points. Terrific start from him. What are you going to go for, Dan?
I'm going to go for another 3-1 win, I think. And I'm going to go for Maguire.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to say Gibson again, given the form he's in. Maguire, Gibson. I'm going to go for the Lavelle header from a corner again.
It's going to come in soon, isn't it? You know what? I'm going to go 3-1 again as well. I've been thinking all along, thinking, do I go 3-0 or not? I don't know if I don't think. Can we keep a clean sheet? I'm not convinced. Yeah, 3-1. I am going to put Gibson in again because he's on a roll, and I think he's going to be a contender for Player of the Month in League 2 if he keeps it up. It's League 1, sorry. It's relegated us there. So Gibson, Joe Garner, and who else? Callum Guy, why not? Callum Guy with a long range effort. Right, here's Mike's prediction for the game.
I'm going for a 3-0 win with goals from Maguire, Gibson, and Lavelle.
Is that exactly the same as yours?
Yeah.
Oh my word! Well, there's not much variety there this week, so we're probably all scoring points or all not scoring points. I think the way it's going. But there you go. Right, X-Files time, Dan. A little bit to cover this week.
Yeah, let me just get my list open. Goals. Jerry Yates scored again for Swansea in their 3-1 win at Plymouth. A good win for them.
Yeah.
James Tavernier scored 2 for Rangers in a 3-0 win at St Mirren.
Not very popular then, though, is he?
No, he's sort of... Him and Conor Goldson are getting a lot of flack at the moment. Jack Marriott, who you mentioned earlier, scored for Fleetwood in a 4-1 defeat at home to Wickham. Amari Patrick scored for Sutton again. Big win for them, 4-0 over Walsall, who one of the goals was scored by a Walsall player, that being Joe Riley, scoring an own goal.
Sutton's an interesting one because that is only their second win of the season.
Yeah,
The first
and the
win
first was against Notts County, who are walking the league at the moment.
And it was a 5-1 win, the first one as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Owen Windsor scored for Chippenham Town in the 4-1 home defeat to Dartford. And Stephen Riggs scored for Workington in the 3-1 FA Trophy defeat to Hyde United. We've got a bit of others this week. The big one, obviously, was Jared Branthwaite signing a new long-term deal for Everton up to 2028.
Lovely stuff.
Making sure we get the bigger chunk when Real Madrid sign him in the summer for 80 million or whatever.
Genuinely, how much do you reckon he can go for?
I think before he signed this deal, what did he have left? 18 months?
Yeah. You'd done well to get 15, wouldn't you?
There was rumours of Man United in January.
Yeah.
I would expect 20-25 million for that. Now he's on a long term. If he plays at the way he's playing, have a look. Search Branthwaite after an Everton game on Twitter. And go to latest. It is nothing but praise. I think if he continues, you could be talking 40 to 60 million. I really do.
If it's January, maybe, but if it's the whole season, and you never know. I mean, look, I think Southgate's probably got his squad sorted for the Euros, but if he plays well for the under-21s and plays well for England,
he'll still pick Harry Maguire.
Yeah, probably.
He'll still pick Harry Maguire.
Yeah, so he's in the under-21s as well, isn't he?
Yes, he's just been called up to the 21s again with James Trafford.
Good stuff.
Did we mention this the other week about Tony Kane?
I feel like we did, maybe briefly.
Well, he had a health scare while playing for Dunelda in Northern Ireland, and he's basically retired. Obviously, best wishes to Tony on that.
Because he's a very good, loyal servant to Northern Irish football, isn't he? You look at it, he's got 400 or 500 games over there, I think. Really, really impressive.
Management news. Adam Murray has been sacked as manager of AFC Fylde. His caretaker replacement?
Chris Beach.
Yeah. I think it will only be caretaker.
Do you think?
Because he's landed a good role there as a director of football or something.
Maybe. There's a suggestion that Lummy was saying on the Carlisle Social, which I'll talk about in a minute. He was saying how that he thought all along that he was going to stab him in the back, basically. So he warned Muzzer about it, but there you go.
And one announced just prior to recording, actually. Oldham Athletic got rid of their manager, and Paul Murray is taking training, possibly even their next game.
He's quite popular there, isn't he, Murray? Like he was with us in Hartlepool. Every club he goes to seems to be a fairly popular player, doesn't he? So, yeah, he'd probably do fairly well there. And that's it, isn't it then, Dan? I think it's all wrapped up.
Yeah.
It's a long episode again, but hey, it's all good fun. Got to give a shout out to the London branch again for their sponsorship this season. Thank you very much. And a shout out actually as well. I've been on the last 2 episodes of the BBC Radio Cumbria's new BBC Sound show for Carlisle United, the Carlisle Social. You're going to go on one episode at some point, aren't you? I think, Dan, they've asked you to.
Yeah.
So I've done it over the line a couple of times. You're going to go into the studio and do it, I think. And it's basically the replacement for Out of the Blue, isn't it? I think it's just Carlisle focused. It's Paul Newton, Chris Lumsden, and James Phillips.
Yeah, they do a separate Carlisle and Barrow one now.
Yeah, so well worth a listen. Go and find it on the BBC Cumbria Sport Twitter feed or on the BBC Sounds app.
Very, very late ex-Blues update.
Go on.
Trafford and Branthwaite are both starting for England under-21s, so we'll report on that next week.
Indeed, yeah. Hopefully some good news there from them too. What we coming up next week? We've got the Leyton Orient review and the Portsmouth preview. It's a big game as well, isn't it? You can't forget we've got them coming over the hill. And we're going to start looking at doing some little bite-sized episodes, aren't we? Where we do little featurey things. So we want ideas from you of topics you want us to talk about. They're going to be 20-minute long episodes just to fill a bit of time in during the week for you guys. Any topic you think might be quite interesting. Like maybe you want us to talk about our favourite Carlisle United free kick takers. Maybe you want us to talk about our favourite Carlisle United mustachioed players. Got a few we could name for that, isn't there? I think
Mally Poskett and Dave Curry. End of conversation.
But who wins out of the two of them? That's the question. I know which one you'd pick. I know which one I'd pick, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, they'll be coming fairly soon. We're going to try and fit a bit of time in days when we're not recording these and do that. So there you go. Dan, thanks for joining me.
No bother.
Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.